Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to another Lemon Amiga game guide and review. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at an arcade conversion. Rodland was created by the Random Access team, which was a division of the Sales Curve, developed this game, and it was published on their own Storm label in 1991. It was a conversion of the JALECO 1990 arcade original, and in this game we play as two fairies known as Rit and Tam. They come from a fairy village and they've been awarded rods of power and rainbow shoes, and it's our job to use those rods and those shoes to tackle 40 levels in this game. So let's press fire and let's check the single player experience out. One day, Tam and Rit discover that their mother has been kidnapped by unknown foes, and all that stands between them and their mother is 40 screens of hell. In this game, all we have to do is to use our ladders and our skills to destroy all the aliens on the levels and to collect all these bonus items. Once all the bonus items are cleared, then that will enter a special bonus game, and now destroying those aliens will actually reward us a bonus letter. The extra letters light up extra, just like Bubble Bobble, and if we collect all those, they will give us an extra life. Perhaps 4 letters can be gained throughout every bonus screen if the player is quick, and so that will really help the player accumulate lives early in the game, and if they don't quite destroy all the aliens in time, they will turn back to normal and we'll just get a weapon. So weapons in this game help us destroy aliens. Usually on every screen, the first priority is to collect all those bonus items and reveal the extra game, and then that gives us the opportunity to collect those bonus letters, and collecting an extra life every 2 levels is recommended in this game. You can see the enemy AI at this point is pretty dumb, and sometimes they will wander and climb our ladders by mistake, and by throwing enemies against each other we can actually knock those out. And you can see I missed the 2 letters there trying to survive. So sometimes survival in this game is the most important priority. In Rodland, we can rely on the ladders, but we can also conjure up our own ladder by pushing forward and fire together, and that should help us get to all those hard to reach places. We can also pull back and press fire to descend the ladder through the level, and sometimes that can be very helpful. You can see by ascending that ladder we can jump over huge gaps, and we can also force aliens into gaps and throw those over our shoulder. So let's wait and collect those letters. I'm just looking for an E there, and now we get a bonus life. Each time we gain a bonus life, that will automatically clear the level, even if we have all the aliens remaining. So sometimes if we are just short of 1 extra letter, it can be important to get that instead of concentrating on the level. But normally the most important point is to collect all those bonus items again to trigger another bonus game. You can see we can even throw aliens around that level, and those hits will be accumulated. So as long as we hit those things 3 times, they will accumulate, then they will ultimately blow up and give us that letter. So let's collect those letters all over again, and if we aren't absolutely on contact with those guys, sometimes we'll push those away. Instead of hitting those with those rods, we'll literally push those around the level. So we have to be bang on target, and those bonus items give us nothing because there's nothing else to blow up. But if that does collide with an extra enemy, we'll gain another bonus. And on screens like this, it's important to avoid all that enemy firepower, and we can ride on those balloons to the top of the level. But you can see throwing aliens over my shoulder so that I can collect all the rest is sometimes an opportune thing to do, because the more aliens you can leave on that level, the more remaining to gain those extra letters. Sometimes you have to abandon those letters while you deal with those aliens, but for the most part, you can see I'm hanging around there waiting for that R and the A. That's the R, so hopefully we can just collect the A before that time runs out, and it will only give us perhaps 20 seconds to grab those. And look at that, very pixel perfect there. Well, that's gained another extra life. You can see we also collect 10,000 points, which is a tremendous bonus for completing a level. Sometimes those enemies will crowd us into a corner, so sometimes getting rid of 1 or 2 of those and maintaining perhaps 4 enemies on every level makes that level a little more manageable. So there's no harm done removing 1 or 2 of those from the start if it makes our progress a little easier, and sometimes it doesn't. Now that we only have 2 enemies on the screen, surely it should be an absolute doddle to win the bonus game, and you can see even the bullets that the enemies fire disappear as soon as we are in the bonus game, which gives us plenty of opportunity to collect those extra letters. The element of riding on balloons in this game reminds me a little of Bubble Bobble, and it's great to play this, and it's even an improvement over Parasol Stars and even Rainbow Islands that were reviewed only a few weeks ago. So sometimes this game is pretty fun, and in the one-player experience, riding around on balloons to gain access to those levels can be pretty fun. And you can see it's rare that the enemies get stuck, and as soon as I drop that ladder, the enemy will drop. So let's use this time to collect all those items. You can see the graphics in this game are very well presented and converted from the arcade originals, and this is one of those close arcade perfect games that they managed to convert onto the Amiga, and so it's a lot closer to the arcade than games like Super Hang-On that we've reviewed already, and games like Pac-Mania. So I think the programmers of this game did an immaculate job, and virtually everything from the arcade, as far as I know, is in there. Let's move on to level 8. You can see the 8 there in the top corner, and after level 10 we'll gain the end of level boss, so we haven't got too far to go. You can see the enemies are all very well animated, and you can see great animation on the enemies later on, and those flowers move around, and even the patterns on the bricks are very well shaded in this game, and they don't give away the fact that this is simple OCS Amiga 500 release. And even an Amiga 1200 AJ version probably couldn't do a better job. But on this level, you can see by throwing those guys around, we can throw those out of those pits, and by carefully manoeuvring those ladders around the screen, we can throw those out of danger. This gives us the bonus game. Unfortunately, this bonus game is pretty packed with enemies, so sometimes you can throw those into each other, but in the main it's pretty difficult when you have all these enemies on the screen, because if you hit those on the side, well, sometimes they'll get stuck on the side and you won't be able to clear those in time to defeat all the other enemies. In this case, we have wasted our time, and pushing a few aliens back there means we have to be pixel perfect. Otherwise we can lose lives very easily in this game simply by pushing aliens back that we needed to collect with those rods. So again, let's clear our way around these levels and let's not get killed straight away, because that's very easy to do. Luckily at this stage there aren't many flying enemies buzzing around, but they will appear later on. And again, everything from the arcade version should be in here, so it should be very familiar, and it's quite easy at this stage on this first section. And so let's enter the bonus game yet again and try to bring a few of those enemies onto our level. And sometimes that's possible, and sometimes not. Sometimes you can whack those things and it makes a huge difference, but sometimes, just like that, we'll have to go down and risk all our lives and energy just to try and get a few more of those aliens. And in this particular case, that did not work. After we lose a life, we are given a little invulnerability, just like all the best platformers, and that invulnerability usually helps us get out of trouble, but not always. And sometimes, as I say, removing a few enemies before you really get going on every screen can sometimes make that screen a little more manageable, and doing that right from the start means we don't have to risk losing lives later. On to level 10, and on level 10 it introduces the player to those dividing aliens, and those will divide and divide indefinitely probably, unless you put a block on those and start getting rid of those. Luckily the bonuses are very easy to collect on this section, so hopefully let's risk everything again to collect those bonus letters in the right order, and hopefully if we wait around for that R, we'll get the extra. It's a great animation when we are given that extra, and the female fairy, the head fairy there, is well drawn, and pity that thing isn't animated, but it's very well drawn, and it's reminiscent of the arcade, so it's great to see those cutscenes in there. Finally, we get to the first end of level bosses, and here we must face 6 alligators, or perhaps crocodiles, and what we have to do is use our rods to punch those in the nose, and eventually they'll move off the screen. They'll throw baby crocodiles in our general direction, and some of those can be ducked under, but most of those must be hit to be avoided, and so it's a choice between hitting the actual crocodile and hitting the offspring. But usually if you hammer that fire button really rapidly, that will get rid of the bulk of the enemies, and then you can just concentrate on the last few. Unfortunately, when the last few remain, they really will start throwing out those babies, and if you get caught out by facing the wrong direction, then unfortunately you will lose a life. The controls in this game are reasonably tight. They aren't absolutely immaculate, not like Turrican 3 that we reviewed last week, but the controls are relatively tight, and it's enough to get us out of the bulk of trouble. Let's see what we make of those bosses, and if you keep hitting those it's not too bad, but look at that, crowding us out there means in this particular case we lost a life, and that is very easy to do at this stage, as you can see. So I'd recommend maybe 3 or 4 lives going into every boss section, just in case you lose a couple on the attempt to get there. After that we collect another 10,000 points, and we gain a great firework display as well, so even demo-like effects are used in this game. You can hear various soundtracks play throughout the game, and those are again reminiscent of the arcade and are well done, and the whole feel of this game is cutesy. No, we don't get to fire guns, but we do explode bombs, and we do whack aliens repeatedly over the head. So if one game for the Amiga could be said to be for girls, this is probably the most girly game perhaps on the Amiga, and it's great fun to play in 2 players with a girlfriend. In 1-player mode, well, it's difficult, and it's probably twice as difficult as in the 2-player mode for obvious reasons. With 2 players, you can help each other, and you can set up traps and destroy aliens the easy way. But in 1-player mode, you have to do everything the hard way, and you can see those tongues emerging from those maggots there. So even though these graphics are cutesy, with bows in the maggot's hair, unfortunately it's a little bit distracting as well when you've got huge tongues making their way across the level. So it's quirky, but just a little bit disturbing as well. Just a little information about this game. It was coded by the Random Access team, headed by Ronald Picket Weeserik, who coded this game. You might remember Ronald also created Silkworm in 1989 for random access, and moved on to Swiv in 1991 before Rodland, and after this he moved on to Mercenaries 1 and 2, the incredible games on the PS2, and even had a hand in the Die Hard trilogy game, that excellent game for the PS1 in 1996. To help him, the code was also provided by John Croudy, who you may remember co-coded the excellent Indie Heat in 1992. These great graphics were drawn by Ned Langman, and Ned Langman also worked on St. Dragon in 1990 for the sales curve, and Swiv in 1991. He created the graphics for that, and he also created the graphics for Big Run in 1992 for the sales curve, which was an absolutely disappointing rally game. The sales curve was created by Jane Cavanagh in 1988, and they distributed their games on the Virgin and Ocean label on the Commodore 64, and by the time they reached the Amiga in 1990, they had developed their own publishing company known as Storm. The sales curve then released games such as Saint Dragon and Swiv, and then they changed the name in 1994 to Sales Curve Interactive, and then in 1999 to SCI. So after that they became famous for the Carmageddon series, and also the Conflict Desert Storm games, which appeared on the PS2. That made SCI so wealthy that they actually bought out Eidos in 2005, but unfortunately in 2009 Square bought out Eidos, and so Square Enix now holds the SCI name, and that meant that the Sales Curve Interactive was no more. So Square now hold the rights to this particular game. I think they did a masterful job on this game. I think the Sales Curve did an amazing job of converting many arcade games to the Amiga, and this one seems to shine quality all the way through. The difficulty level is absolutely perfect for the single player match, and even works perfectly for the two-player game. Of course, with two players, this game actually shines out more than ever, and Rodland is certainly being well produced and well coded, and I can't find anything wrong with it. There's certainly no bugs in this game, or anything which lets it down. We can even press the fire button to skip these sequences, and it's great to skip on from this point and get back to the main action as quickly as possible. You can see every few levels the aliens will change, and something which looks like a potato on that particular level, as well as these overly cutesy squirrels which aren't too cutesy because they're actually lethal. I think it's great that there are so many bonus weapons on offer, and the fact that they will traverse the screen, which means that the aliens can be killed in any number of different ways, using weapons or using the rods to throw them around. And so the options in this game are many, and the fact that those ladders can be cast all the way around the screen means we can navigate these levels pretty easily. In fact, the C64 version of this game was pretty similar, and I think they did a great job on that as well. Comparing the Amiga to the other versions, the arcade is of course the best as it would be, and it's got great music as well. The NES version is pretty well done. It's not as good as the Amiga, but it's pretty well done anyway. Perhaps the backgrounds are too bland on that version. And the Commodore 64, well, apart from the black backgrounds, I think they did a valiant job. And this was also available for the ZX Spectrum machine, the Amstrad and the ST. And there is even a version for the iOS, the latest Apple, and also for the Game Boy. The Game Boy also received its own version, although the Game Boy is very much easier because the player can use the rods on ladders, and that means they can simply run away from the enemies by climbing down ladders, and they are virtually invulnerable, so it's not quite the same. But you can see the graphics out of all these machines. The Amiga and the ST is probably the closest to the arcade original, and I'm glad that the programmers did such a great job. On the Amiga, all the enemies seem to be in there, and there are attack patterns as well, and the potato heads will fire droplets of liquid if we rise above those on the level, So the game introducing the player to new enemies at every stage, and that's certainly great to see. And again, it's virtually identical to the arcade in that version. And look at that, even the AI is getting slightly smarter by the time we get to this point in the game. We are on our last life now, so I don't think I'm going to get very much further, and I've actually only ever got to the maybe second or maybe third boss in this game, and so let's try to at least get to the second boss in one piece. Because this is a great conversion, the magazines didn't really waste much time giving this a high score. In fact, the lowest score I could find for Rodland was actually on the Lemon Amiga website, and the current score is 84%. Apart from that, Amiga Power gave Rodland 86%, CU gave it 87%, Amiga Action and Amiga Format both gave this game 88%, Amiga Computing gave Rodland 89%, The One gave it 89%, and actually Amiga Force gave Rodland 90%, saying that it was a cracking arcade conversion and even more fun in two-player mode. I couldn't agree more. That gives the average score of 88%, and well, 8.5 I'm going to give that. But I still think it's in the realms of very good. Everything about this game is very polished and it's quite addictive. It's not amazingly addictive, not like other games we've seen, but it still ranks up there as a very professional game on the Amiga. Finally, we get to the second level boss out of the 4 in this game, and the second end of level boss is a whale, and again we have to avoid the offspring and hit that thing in the eye. I'd recommend having 3 or 4 lives at this point, and that makes that job much easier. If not, you'll be struggling. And so that's the end of my talent. Just the small matter of entering our measly high scores on that high score table. Thank you once again for viewing another Playguide and review to another Amiga gem and another instant classic. Hope to see you again sometime soon.